Eric Edholm, how you doing?
Yeah, pretty soon all these predictions I've been spending all summer working on, they won't matter. The games will start and something else will happen, but that's all right. I like that.
Well, you have was it fair to say that the Eagles, I don't know if they're one of your favorite teams, but you spent a lot of time covering the Eagles through the years, specifically.
Well, yeah, for years, in my first go-around at Pro Football Weekly, I was the NFC East guy for a long time. So, yeah, I knew that team very intimately from about 2002 to, 2012-ish, something like that. But, yeah, I mean, I know some guys on the staff, and it's a team that obviously was in the center of attention last season. So, yeah, it's been an interesting franchise to keep track of.
And you write extensively about them as they begin their defense of their Super Bowl tonight in Philadelphia. I love the Bob Dylan quotes, by the way.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, just the aggressive tone that they set. And it's really interesting to look back, too, when Doug Peterson got there 2 years ago. They weren't a real good football team. They were 7-9, and I think were 5-9 at one point before winning their last two games. But his aggressive nature was there that first season. We should have seen this coming, and as they added more talent and Carson Wentz gained more confidence, I mean, it really started paying off. And so I kind of wonder, and that's really the piece I think you're referencing is, will this be the kind of the more of the trend around the NFL? Will teams see what the Eagles did in going forward on fourth down and not being scared to go for 2-point conversions and things like that, calling trick plays and such? I mean, just that kind of push the pedal to the metal mentality that really thrust them to a title. You have Matt Nagy in Chicago. You have Frank Reich in Indianapolis, a slew of new coaches who have ties to Peterson, et cetera. Will this be kind of the new norm around the NFL? And I hope so, because that makes for a more exciting game and sometimes more prosperous game for teams who are willing to take that risk.
We'll get back to the Eagles in just a second, but you referenced it about what happened to Jacksonville. Jacksonville had that lead late in the game against the Patriots, and they went very, very conservative. Now, because of the way the season that they had and the way it ended, they're a sexy pick for this year. How do you rank them?
Yeah, obviously you start with them defensively and you say, that starting unit is probably as good pound for pound as any defense in the NFL. And then I would put them up there with the Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings and the LA Rams and the LA Chargers and a handful of other teams who you could say are in the top, that elite category defensively. Now, if they suffer some injuries, if they lose a Jalen Ramsey or if they lose a Calais Campbell for any length of time, I think that depth will be tested a little bit. So I'm a little leery about that. They got some pretty good luck injury-wise a year ago. And, those things don't always carry over. It's a wild card factor. But you also have to think about the offense and the limitations on that side of the ball with Blake Bortles, with Leonard Fournette having some big games, but really an inconsistent rookie season, some injury concerns with him. The offensive line should be better, but where are the weapons? Where are the big play guys on at receiver and tight end? I don't know if they're there. So I have kind of a ceiling for what they can achieve this year. I don't believe they're a Super Bowl caliber team. I don't think they're going to score 8 defensive touchdowns, one every other week, basically, the way they did last year. So counting on points from their defense is going to be a little bit of a risky proposition.
So if we take a deeper look at the weapons at Blake Bortles' disposal, Eric, what do you think? I mean, what are your impressions of Dede Westbrook and Keelan Cole and Dante Moncrief signed a relatively big free agent deal considering the season he had last year? What do you think of that receiving core in general?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan, to be totally honest. And Dede Westbrook is an electric playmaker, but he's also 170 pounds soaking wet, and he's kind of a flash player. I don't know that he'll ever develop into one of the elite, slot guys or something like that. Keelan Cole came out of nowhere last year as one of the great success stories, and maybe he's got a higher ceiling than I realized. I always thought he was a very plucky little player down the stretch last year, but I don't know that he'll ever be more than a number 2 receiver in that offense. Dante Moncrief has been a tease most of his career. Great physical ability, but has never really fully put it together. The guy I would say is maybe the wild card is DJ Shark, the second rounder out of LSU. He's one to watch, especially the fantasy folks out there. I really think that he has a chance to develop, but still a little bit of an unrefined, unpolished gem. So it's kind of a middling group of tight ends, Austin Sperry-Jenkins. I don't know. Something tells me they're going to be a very, very limited offense, maybe a field goal offense this year a little bit.
Back to the Eagles.
This decision when I say it's the doctors, it's Carson, it's Nick, it's a collaborative effort. I've been in conversation with these guys for a long time. And this is why sometimes my emotions get kind of stirred up, because a lot of times you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and nor do you need to know.
Head coach Doug Peterson. I'll turn this over to Eagles fan Mitch Gallo. Certainly Nick Foles did not have an impressive preseason. He's a veteran player. I believe in a lot of sports, a lot of veteran guys, especially coming off a deep run. They just want to stay healthy and work out some kinks. Gallo?
Yeah, well, if you're asking if I believe in Nick Foles, the answer is no. I do not. I think perhaps he got lucky a couple times along the way in the playoffs and faced a couple opponents that kicked themselves. But I think Nick Foles, in a backup situation, which is what I think he's in right now, taking over for a quarterback who's not healthy to start the season, that's a pretty good number 2.
I agree. I mean, I said at the time that, the signing of Foles and the retention of Foles, it could end up being one of the more important additions, or one of the more important transactions of the offseason, just because of the uncertain nature of Wentz's future. I mean, with his health. I mean, Wentz is going to be a terrific quarterback when he gets back, whenever that time is, whether it's week 2 or week 4. I don't know what that is, but having that layer of security there, it's almost unprecedented given what Foles did in the Super Bowl. But the game before, as you referenced, I mean, look, I didn't think he played all that great against the Falcons. The first half was, he had an interception that was dropped. I mean, there were some really shaky plays out there. And, he led 2 field goal drives in the second half that were nice drives, but there was a limit to what he did. And if the Falcons convert that 4th down play, we're not talking about Nick Foles' heroics, and who knows if he'd be back, or be, so many questions with that. But yeah, I mean, no Jeffrey tonight. Foles coming off a little bit of a rough preseason. The offensive line did him no favors. No Nigel Bradham on defense. So, yeah, they're dealing with a few things right out of the chute.
Yeah, no question. You mentioned no Alshon Jeffrey, also no Mac Hollins. Not a lot at receiver for tonight's game. But we did see Jay Ajayi have a lot of success against the Falcons in particular. So with the fact that they're short at receiver and they have Foles behind center, how much do you think we see Ajayi featured tonight?
Yeah, I think Ajayi is going to be part of it. We saw Corey Clement's role expand as the year went on, especially in the Super Bowl as a receiver. And, I think Zach Ertz is going to be a real tough cover for the Falcons tonight. He's probably in line to be one of their leading receiver, Nelson Aguilar, too. They still have guys to throw to. I don't think they're going to be completely out of rhythm or anything like that. But it is a good Falcons defense, a young, aggressive, hard-hitting defense, fast-flow group. I think they'll do a little bit better tackling on Ajayi. You saw him kind of bounce off some arm tackles in that game. I'm sure that's been played more than once in the meetings there in Atlanta. I think the Falcons are a Super Bowl caliber team, and I'm picking them to win it all this season. I really think they're that good. I don't know what that means for this matchup, but I think their improvement can come from little things like being better in the red zone, a little bit better tackling and angles to the ball on defense, and that can ultimately be the difference between a good team and a great one.
So, for what it's worth, one of the big sports books in Vegas, they have listed the Eagles at 14-1 to win the Super Bowl. The Patriots are at 6-1, third straight season they're the favorite. And among the teams that Vegas figures has a better chance of winning the Super Bowl than the defending champs are the Steelers and the Rams and the Saints. Back to predictions, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, not that it's not stunning to see that given the way the Rams loaded up. I think I'm a little surprised at the lack of respect for the Eagles, given how they've kept the core of this team intact, and even with a few early, injury concerns, I still think by the end of the season they're going to be one of the handful of teams to beat. But that NFC side of the equation is just going to, teams are just going to beat each other up. That's going to it looms now, 4 months out, as one of the deepest potential playoff pools we've seen in a long time. So that's why I think you see New England so high, because a lot of people aren't buying into the Chiefs or the Chargers or the Steelers. I don't know. I think the Steelers might have a little bit of a tougher season than we saw a year ago. So right now, it's about looking at the strength on the NFC side of the equation and kind of the lack of strength on the AFC side.
What's your view of the Falcons?
I love them. I think I picked them to win the Super Bowl. I mean, I really do.
Wow.
I think they're a terrific team. I've got them beating the Chargers in Atlanta. Of course, Super Bowl is in Atlanta next year, so it'll be the first true home team. I know there was, close proximity years ago with the LA Super Bowl, but yeah, I mean, this is, again, I picked them to win tonight. I think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I think we're going to get treated to a really good game tonight. But the Falcons, to me, even in that tough division, I have a really good feeling about their chances this year.
We know about Julio Jones, but what did you make of Calvin Ridley's preseason? You think their first-round pick is ready for prime time?
No, I don't think so. I think he's kind of stuck in that number 3 or 4 role right now. He had a bit of a quiet preseason. It was a little bit of a disappointing one, but that's pretty common with young receivers, even for one who's, mature like he is. Program that used the pro-style system. Brian Daboll's now, he's had NFL experience as a coordinator, and, you think he'd be as prepared as anybody. I think he's 24 years old, so he's an older rookie. He'll be 25, I think, later this season, but I expect his role to grow. I don't think right away he's going to be featured in that offense. They'll find little plays and little ways to get him involved because he is a talent, but, I think it's still going to be Jones, Sanu, the run game. Austin Hooper might take a step up at tight end. They just have nice balance all the way around.
About an hour ago on this show,
Colin did an awful lot of good things for us on the field and off, and his career, like mine, is taking a detour at the moment.
that is Trent Baalke, who's in the NFL operations department. He told us flat out, he's in Toronto for NFL Canada, that he doesn't really follow much the NFL, that he does whatever they want him to do. He wants to stay in the game, but it's kind of ironic that Baalke's career ended the same time that Kaepernick's career ended in 2016.
Well, I think you have to look at his track record. He won Super Bowl, another NFC Championship game. He's won a lot of games. He's put up big numbers in those games, with his arm and his feet. So he certainly had a run of success in the league. And that's all you can go by as an evaluator. What does the film tell you?
I had to ask him 3 times. I realize he's been a bit of a political situation here, but about all the quarterbacks who have come and gone since 2016 and Kaepernick's last game, if he would be able to play in the National Football League. So we move on, and the big commercial that has been leaked, it's already, most people have seen it. It's from a marketing standpoint, it's extremely well done. It's powerful. I'm not a fan of Nike necessarily, but in terms of a visual experience and a message getting across, I think it's really well done. What do you think? What do you think most of the owners are thinking right now in anticipation of this being aired?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I mean, I think just on the surface, if that ad didn't include Colin Kaepernick, if he wasn't the kind of the narrator or the voice behind it, you would still say it was a well done ad. So I think you have to, I would ask people to kind of remove themselves and say, look, it was a beautifully done ad even without the Kaepernick angle to it. But yeah, I mean, obviously that part of it is going to be the third rail of this whole thing, and the fact that Nike is such an important NFL sponsor that's on every jersey, that sort of thing. They're smack dab in the middle of a long-term agreement. The NFL issued a statement that seemed to be, relatively supportive of athletes who do good in their communities and things like that. And, I don't know. I think it would depend on the owner. I think there are a lot of owners who feel more supportive of the situation than we realize. I don't think this is just, 32 billionaire cigar-chomping owners sitting in a room throwing darts at a picture of Kaepernick's head. I really think that has been blown up way too much. I think there are a few hawkish owners who have been vehemently against this or fearful of what Donald Trump will say or do next that have kind of been at the forefront of this thing and have been sort of the driving force, where you have others who have been in the background a little bit and I think are just kind of shaking their heads and saying, all right, it's not my issue to deal with. It's not my problem to sort out. It's the NFL's thing. So I think it would really depend on the owner and the ones you ask. Jerry Jones would have a different answer than somebody else who's maybe a little bit more in the shadows, so to speak. So, yeah, it's a tough question to answer, I guess.
It all gets underway tonight, 8 o'clock, right here on TSN 690. Eagles hosting the Falcons. Eric, thanks an awful lot. Looking forward to this. We'll talk again tomorrow to preview the first Sunday of the season.
Looking forward to it. You got it.